Welcome to the show, and thanks for listening. Originally, I wanted to put together an episode on surviving the loss of a pet and dealing with grief. So I went looking for an expert on the topic and came across Cherokee Billie, an interfaith minister, animal communicator, and spiritual advisor. At her core, Cherokee Billie is a teacher. After my first conversation with her, I quickly realized how important it was to open the conversation. She has so much to offer that limiting the topic suddenly didn't seem like an option. She's the real deal. If you want razzle-dazzle, I'm afraid you'll have to look somewhere else. Cherokee Billie isn't going to tell you what you want to hear. She's going to tell you what you need to hear. In this episode, Cherokee Billie shares how she draws on the divine presence of Archangel Raphael to communicate with animals. She discusses the significance of the Rainbow Bridge and shares how she has done psychic readings on a variety of animals, from hamsters to horses and everything in between. I invite you to learn more about my guest by following the links in the show description. Be sure to visit her website at CherokeeBillieSpiritualAdvisor.com. That's Cherokee Billie, Billie, Spiritual Advisor, and that's ADVISOR.com. And now, over to the show. I want to welcome my listeners to the show. This is Supernatural Pet Sightings, and I'm your host, Lisa Theriault. Tonight we have a special guest, Cherokee Billie. She's a spiritual advisor, ordained interfaith minister, animal communicator, and so much more. Now, originally, I wanted to talk about grief, people who've lost a pet and they're experiencing grief and all of that. But after talking to Cherokee Billie, I realized the huge amount of talent and services that she has to offer. So I think we would be doing a disservice to my listeners by just talking about one thing. When you, and by the way, thank you so much for joining the podcast, you've got so much to offer. So I thought we would just maybe jump in first, and maybe you could give us kind of the lowdown on what it is you do.
Well, everything. As my father always say, I'm the janitor, because there isn't anything I don't do, and down to, being the lowly janitor. But then again, it says in the Bible, with the lowly are wisdom, and I will take it that way. The exalted, they say, don't have it, but the lowly do, and I'll go with that one. Anyway, thank you for having me on your
You're
program,
very welcome.
Lisa. I'm very honored and touched, that finally somebody's reaching out to me about what I do with animals.
Yeah.
I've been on many programs over the years as a clairvoyant and different things, but my love is really pet communication. And I do more than that. I do pet chakra balancing, energy work, and that, I tell you, is really rewarding what I see. And I've helped many people who have pets that are, let's say, terminal, but extend their life longer so they had more time with them,
Yeah.
And and animals just are little natural receptors. They pick up the energy quick. And, it's just so much easier. I balance chakras on humans as well. But with animals, it's just so fast. And I tune in. I use Archangel Raphael to do this work. And he guides my hands through where I'm supposed to be and where the key hot spot is on that animal. So
Yeah, that's interesting.
it is. It truly is. And I really, there's something special about animals.
Yeah, well, we had talked earlier, we had talked about animals and how you had mentioned how much easier it is to kind of get through to the healing with them. And we talked about perhaps it's because they don't have the ego, or they don't have the kind of things that me or you,
A human does.
might hold
Well,
on
they're
to.
pure. Their souls, if they're a dog, they're a dog. If they're a cat, they're a cat. If they're a mouse, they're a
Hmm.
mouse. If they're a snake, they're a snake. They aren't pretending to be something that they aren't.
Right.
And they're just pure.
Yeah.
In my eyes, God's perfect example of creation. And I am
Hmm.
half Cherokee, and it is part of our
Hmm.
culture to believe in the power of animals and their spirit and what
Hmm.
they give to us. And all my life, I've been communicating with animals. I didn't think it was anything
Hmm.
special in talking with them. I didn't know it
Yeah.
until I can't even tell you when the first person who ever contacted me, I'll never forget it, to communicate with a pet of hers that passed, and it was a
Hmm.
hamster.
Really?
And yeah,
Hmm. Okay.
and I remember it well, and I did it, and it was just so easy. And then some of the most unusual, I had a lady contact me about her Japanese goldfish. She was destroyed by its death.
Oh.
I've channel channeled, communicated with some interesting different animals. I've done horses,
Hmm.
cats, dogs. Obviously, cats and dogs the most
Hmm.
popular, but it's just working with the animals is a true delight. Best way I can put it.
And you mentioned that you work through Archangel Raphael. Is that correct?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So every time
I
that's
call
what
on him. Yes.
you would pray, you would call upon
Just a
that.
little side note for those
Okay.
people
Okay.
listening. The angels are there and they will help, but you must ask. If you don't ask, they don't do because they're breaking
Yes.
the free will that God gave us by interfering. Now, sometimes angels do without asking, but why people don't get much
Hmm.
is they don't ask, you know? So that's an important
Right.
thing for us lowly little
Right.
humans to remember. I think the animals know that already.
Yeah, they are definitely pretty special.
They are. And, that's why,
Sure.
well, you mentioned grief. Let me go there for a moment. That's why when
Hmm.
a person loses a pet, no matter what the pet may be, like I mentioned, the hamster or the goldfish or cat, a dog, it's devastating because they are so perfect in their own way.
Hmm.
They aren't trying to be something they are not. And they're just so perfect. You're getting a little glimpse of God, is the best way I can put it. And that's why the
Yeah.
grief can be so devastating. That emptiness without that spirit, that soul there. Although they do live on,
Yeah.
like I say, I communicate with them. And I have
Hmm.
many stories I
Oh
can
yeah.
tell you. You brought up supernatural things. Just about a few nights ago, actually,
Hmm.
I have my last pet who passed was a cat, Tigray, and she just suddenly jumped up right by my
Uh-huh.
arm on the bed, and I was like, "Whoa!" It was quick. All
I'm
right,
sure
thank you, Tigray.
a lot of listeners can relate
She
to
just
that.
there
There's
she
so many
was.
people where that similar thing has happened to them. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and people who haven't had the experience need to know that it is very fast. Any, be it animal or human
Hmm.
spirit that visits, it's
Yeah.
quick. It's just you think it wasn't
Hmm.
real, but it was, and they do come that way. I don't know how else to explain it because
Yeah.
I've been doing this for
Yeah.
a long time, and this is what I've learned. You know, and
Well, there's so much to talk
my
about.
little
There
brain's going
are.
in so many
There are.
directions. There's so
But,
many things. Yeah, it's a big
okay.
subject. Well, I wanted to share. I thought of a interesting story about spirits and animals that I had, and this one was one. Well, all right, I'll just tell the story. I moved into a home, and I it was a nice home, and it was in Los Angeles at
Hmm.
the time, and I had a dog, a little Shih Tzu, and a little Yorkie. And when I moved in with a woman because I am disabled for people who don't know, and I have to have caregivers. And anyway, she was going to live with me in that home. It was a big home. I thought, no problem. But my little Shih Tzu, Julia, started from the
Hmm.
second we got there. Julia was a nervous wreck and just falling apart to the point she would be clawing on me and trying to climb on my head in absolute fear all the time. And
Hmm.
I thought I was going to have to
Hmm.
put her to sleep at the time. And I was like, oh my God. I thought she was having a nervous breakdown. She was really. And the house was definitely haunted. I knew that very quickly that it was. And it wasn't a bad spirits, all of it. There was so many good. The man who had owned it had died there. And I would talk to him. I never saw him, but I saw his manifestations. And I know Julia was seeing the spirits, but I couldn't understand, the fear she was in. Just like I said, just I
Wow.
mean, this went on for almost a year, where I was really. She was everything.
Hmm.
Any sound, and she'd just be hysterical. Okay, and she had been a very peaceful, passive little dog, and I couldn't get it. Well, anyway, this
Hmm.
caregiver abruptly quit, and the minute she did, now Julia knew, she instantly relaxed
Really?
down. Number one,
Huh.
instantly. Yeah, really. And that night, I don't know what this woman was into, but wow, she released
Oh.
spirits that were not of God. And I mean, doors were opening, closing.
Hmm.
But the worst part, the one that made me really angry with the spirit thing was my little Yorkie had severe health issues with
Hmm.
uh, diarrhea and intestinal problems. And she was house trained and she would use the
Hmm.
bathroom. It was newspapers for her back in the old days, folks, when we had newspapers. And yeah, it makes you sound like an antique nowadays. But anyway, she would walk around and around in a circle because of the pain. And I would hear her walking and I would
Hmm.
usually call to her because I'd want to give her medicine. Well, I woke up hearing her walking that sound. That was this
Hmm.
night of incredible spirits going through the home. Anyway, I could hear her walking in a circle, so I started calling to her and calling, and then I moved
Uh-oh.
my hand to the left, and there she was on the bed. Yeah, and the spirit
Oh
was
my
imitating her being
gosh.
sick, and I went berserk furious and did
Yep.
spiritual cleansing right then and there on the home. And from that point on, it was good spirits, and Julia was happy, and they both lived happy there, is all I can
Hmm.
say. But it's just the spirit world is very real,
Right.
and I don't understand everything. I don't claim to. I
Yeah.
just know
Yeah.
I've
Would
seen
you
the
say
good
you've
and I've
seen
seen the
more? Have you
evil.
seen more good than evil, or
But it was
um,
interesting.
both? Yeah.
Wow. I don't know anymore
Hmm.
because of the human factor. There's so much evil going
Right.
through
Yeah.
humans that it's hard
Yeah.
for me to say it anymore. It's unfortunate,
Yeah.
but I'm
Yeah.
just speaking what I have observed. You know, I believe there's lots of good people out there. Don't anybody
No.
mistake me that I'm saying everyone's evil. No, it's just it's overwhelming, and I
Hmm.
think anyone who's sensitive, empathic, or they just don't want to be around people much because
Yeah. I've
those
heard that
energies
lots of
are
times before,
overwhelming.
and it makes a lot of sense to
You
me.
know,
Yeah.
yes, it does, and
Yeah.
that's why I'm using my example, my little dog Julia, and
Hmm.
my father, when he was alive, he loved her. He just thought the world of her, and he used to
Hmm.
come and pick her up and take her out for a ride all day.
Oh.
They had a great time together, and he passed before she did. Anyway, um, she passed in 2002, my father in 1994, but my cat Isis passed. It would now be almost 6 years ago. And when she did, I was on the phone, and I'd never done this before with any of my animals,
Hmm.
but this time I was led to do this, is I immediately hung up and I went into the spirit world. I'm able to
Right.
project quickly and go into spirit. And I did, and there was Isis there at that bridge, and it does exist. And she was there, and
Oh.
on the other side of the bridge, I could see my father, and he was holding Julia in one of his arms.
Mm-hmm.
And Isis, when she never had met my father, but when she saw him, she ran
Oh
across
my
that
God.
bridge and jumped up into his other arm. And then the three of them stood there looking at me, and
Right.
like to say,
How
"Well,
did you
we're here
feel?
when you come." And
Yes.
well,
Yes.
losing her was just very hard. It was wonderful. And then December of last year, 2019, my little cat Tigre passed. And again, I did the same thing. I went and I was on the phone and I went immediately into spirit. This one's even more interesting. When I did, Tigre was there, but she was like 6 weeks old, she looked. She was back to that real young age. And Isis came running across the bridge to Tigre, and she started licking her all over, just repeatedly licking her over every part of her body. And at one point, I was like, "Come on, Isis, I want to know what's going to happen. Would you stop?" But she kept on, and then it dawned on me she was getting rid of. Tigre was sick all of her life, and she was
Right.
licking
Yeah.
off all remnants of this life on her. Because Isis was
Yeah.
incredibly gifted. I could tell
So what do you
stories
mean
about
gifted?
her
Or maybe we can go into
forever,
that
what
after.
she
Yeah.
did. But anyway,
Yep.
I'll I'll get into it after this. Anyway, she licked and licked, and finally she stopped. And when she did, she started slowly walking across the bridge, and T. Gray slowly following, looking around like, "Wow, what is this?" And again, she looked like 6 weeks. Well, this time I walked on the bridge with them, and when I got up halfway, I could see again
Mm-hmm.
my father. This time Julia was standing next to him, and there they were, and he turned around and Julia did,
Mm-hmm.
and they started walking into the ethers. And Isis followed, and T. Gray
Mm-hmm.
kind of wondering, like, what is all this? But she followed. And I watched
Wow.
them all go walking into the mystic.
Very powerful.
Very powerful. Yeah, these are things that I have seen, okay, and experienced. Now,
I
you
do
were going
too.
to ask me something.
But as you're
I
talking and
forget.
you were talking about how you
Oh,
were
well.
able. Yes. Yep.
Oh, about Isis. I know. You asked a question. Well, I mean, I've had a lot of animals in my life,
Mm-hmm.
and I've had everything, mice as pets,
Mm-hmm.
turtles, fish, you name it. I love animals.
Mm-hmm.
And they've each one been special, no question about it. But Isis was beyond anything, and how I knew it happened one morning. I woke up while I was asleep, and I heard a woman's voice calmly,
Mm-hmm.
clearly say to me, "There's someone in the house." And when I opened my eyes, Isis
Mm-hmm.
was on top of my chest, her face right at me.
Oh, okay.
And where it was that house I mentioned earlier, I had a camera system and I turned it on and I was going through the cameras and I saw the person. And I was able to scare them off by going on the intercom and I ran them off. But the fact that she spoke,
Yeah.
and I mean calmly, clearly, there's someone in the house.
Yep. And
That
that's,
just
yeah.
says it all to me about her.
That is
She
amazing.
was beyond anything I've ever encountered.
Mm-hmm.
Everything about her was truly amazing. That's why her loss was
Mm-hmm.
devastating, but so was my other one, Tigre. But, again, animals, if we are
Yes.
receptive, they do
Mm-hmm.
speak.
Yeah.
I don't know how else to put it.
Right.
And it may not always be like Isis speaking in English, but they speak. And I think most pet owners already know that anyway. And again, we
Mm-hmm.
go back to this is why the grief is so horrible because they are so enormously different and
Mm-hmm.
special. And again, it's that purity of essence The
There's
godlike,
nothing like it.
God
They
light
don't judge
that
you.
is in them
They
is
just love
blinding
you
them.
no matter what.
No, no.
Hmm.
Well, they
Yeah.
know if you're bad. They do have that sense.
Right.
So let's say they do have a judgment.
Yep.
You ever had a dog or a cat that
Hmm.
reacted very negatively to
Yes, I have
someone
two dogs right now that's
don't trust
happened
that
with a
person.
few, very few, but a few people. Yeah. Yeah. They do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They're going to tell you, you know,
Hmm.
and they're letting you know
They
in their
are
own
truly
special
amazing.
way, but they let you know. And they are, and that's why again we back to that
Hmm.
grief factor, why it's so devastating. A lot of what
Yes.
I do when I'm with people who pay for my services to speak to their
Hmm.
pet that's passed on or one that is in the final
Okay.
stages is I do grief
Yeah.
counseling. People need it so much. You know, they're just
I
don't
understand.
know
My
how they're going
dogs
to
are both
face it,
healthy, and I worry now. I don't know how I will ever how I will handle that crushing grief. Just don't know. That's right.
No, you don't know until it happens. But,
Hmm.
the thing that I feel should be of comfort,
Yeah.
and some people get it, some people don't,
Yes.
is the fact that they do live on and we will meet together. Many
Hmm.
people heard about the Rainbow Bridge. I don't know if you're
Is
familiar
it?
with it, but it's really a Native American
Yeah, I've
teaching.
only recently heard about that and what it
Yes,
means, but yeah.
basically, well, I mean,
Hmm.
most people have heard it, but let me explain what it is. The teaching is that when you die, you come to that bridge, and that is your place to pass over into the spirit world. Well, at
Hmm.
that bridge will be every animal you've encountered,
Okay.
and they are going to say
Hmm.
whether you get in or not. It's up to them.
Hmm.
That's what it's really about.
Hmm.
It's not so much where they pass over. That's
Hmm.
where, let's say, the real judgment comes, is right there. And so let's take these
Hmm.
people go out game sport
Hmm.
hunting, killing elephants and
Hmm.
rhinos or all these beautiful creatures that they kill, or birds or whatever. I mean, if you're
Yes.
killing for the sake of survival, that's
That's
one
right. For
thing.
profit.
But sport is a whole
Hmm.
nother ball game. And I can, right. Well, or just the fact that, wow, look at me, I did this. Well, those people are
Hmm.
not going to be entering into the
Yeah.
kingdom. Comes down to that. If they have somehow
Right. Hmm.
asked for forgiveness and changed in this life, yes. But if they go over with that still, that
Yeah.
same spirit that they had in real life,
That's
that's where they
interesting.
will be
And if
stopped by
anybody
those
knows whether
animals
you're
that they killed.
truly changed or
It
not, an
is.
animal will know. An animal will know. Yeah.
That's it.
Hmm.
Why do you think God gave them so many special gifts?
Hmm.
They are just, I don't care what.
Yeah.
You look at the
Yeah.
intelligence of an animal and
Yeah.
what
It
they
is.
can do. It's amazing.
It is. So yeah, that should be comforting.
It
That
is.
should
So,
absolutely
anyway,
comfort.
I'll let you go from there.
Hmm. Hmm.
It should, but it doesn't, everyone, you
Hmm.
know? Some people still are so caught up in the grief that
Yeah,
really
and I
doesn't
think that
comfort
you
them,
do have to go
unfortunately.
through that grieving process, and some people it's faster than others. But if you can learn to accept that somewhere within that grief, that understanding of your animals living on and the real purpose for why they were here in the first place, then you should be able to start to come through that
Hmm.
pain.
And
Hmm. Yeah.
I agree.
Hmm.
Some
And that's
people
sad
can and some
because
can't let
your
go
animal
ever,
wouldn't want you to be
you
in
know?
pain for the rest of your life. No. Yeah,
Not at all. They only want you like they
exactly.
did in life.
Yeah.
They want to make you happy. That's why people, like you mentioned, I know I'm not the only one, but
Hmm.
people have had sightings or whatever of their pet. I have one lady who contacted me last year at the end when her pet had passed, and
No.
it was a little Yorkie, another little Yorkie. But this dog, she sees it every night. It sits in her bathroom, and she can see that dog clear as day. And she talks to it. The dog comes over, responds, and it's never stopped. And she has a turtle. I don't know what type, like a box turtle or something. But the turtle and this dog were great friends.
Oh.
Well, the turtle goes in there and sits right where that dog's spirit is.
Yeah, it really is. Yep.
Yeah. Quite amazing, and how I love this turtle, how intelligent. People don't give enough credit to animals like turtles or any of the reptiles, but they are incredibly intelligent. They're not, I know I personally don't want to meet a snake, but I realize it's,
I have a deep
intelligence
fascination for reptiles, and I don't know where that comes from, but I'm amazed by them.
Well, you think about it, they are one of the most primitive beings. They were around in prehistoric times, and that's why, probably part of it is that there is, and their intelligence, like that little turtle just gets me about the way it does everything, and how she sent me a picture of how her little dog and the turtle would greet her when she came home at the door. It was so cute.
Yeah.
I mean, this turtle really amazes me. And, I like to share. I have a pet grief support group on Facebook. Just throwing that in for people. It's called Beyond the Bridge Pet Parent Grief Support. And I often share videos of turtles and other animals besides dogs and cats, because all animals are interesting to me.
I hope you're enjoying the show. I certainly enjoyed the interview. And I hope to have her on again sometime soon. In fact, if there's something in particular that you're interested in learning more about, let us know. You can email the show at petsightings@gmail.com, or you can contact Cherokee Billie directly through her website. Again, you'll find all of her links and contact information in the show's description. Now, it never feels like a good time to bring this up, but writing, producing, and editing this podcast takes a fair bit of time, energy, and money. It's a competitive world out there, and in order for this podcast to rise from the shadows, we need subscribers. The thing is, subscribing is free, and it only takes a second. What you're doing by subscribing is telling invisible algorithms that this podcast is worth listening to. It's like a digital nod of approval. So please, if you haven't done it already, go ahead and subscribe. Before I bring you back to the show, I have one more favor to ask, and again, it's free. Supernatural Pet Sightings relies on stories from people like you. People who've had some kind of paranormal pet experience. If you've had anything like that, if you have something to tell, please email the show at petsightings@gmail.com. And now back to the show.
Well, look at, most people know who Coco the gorilla was. She lived about 35, 45 years, passed away, and look at how intelligent she could sign language and communicate exactly. The woman, a trainer, teacher, whatever you want to call her, taught her sign language, and she communicated with it, and very well. And many may know her because Robin Williams went in with her into her cage and they shared quite a little experience. It's on YouTube. You can look it up, Robin Williams and Coco, and it's quite interesting to watch how, she fell in love with him. She wanted to take him back in the back room. Okay. She loved him. And when he passed, they let her know, and she cried. Now, you tell me, she only met him that one time, but, she knew who he was. Yeah, explain that. Exactly. And, look at the intelligence there. Yeah, and people want to say that they don't know a, a gorilla or a monkey not knowing and not learning sign language. Oh, I would say you are an idiot because, they're so close to our species. There's no way they can not learn something. I've never had a monkey, but I'm sure, or a gorilla, but I just feel that within them such intelligence.
Yeah. Do you feel that people are so busy with all of their everyday nonsense that they just don't find the time to quiet down enough to experience the animal? And I guess what I mean by that, I've seen people who own dogs and they love their dogs, but they never actually look them in the eye. They don't get down to their level and
Yeah,
talk to
yeah,
them or,
that's a
engage.
good point. You have hit on, yes, some people, yeah, sure, they may love their pet, but they haven't come to that deep
Yeah.
level,
No,
and you are right.
no.
And it isn't just today's age, it's been always, people who didn't. We go back to the Native Americans, they honored the animals, and they always, when they killed an animal in the sacred ancient times, they would pray and bless the animal for giving its life so that they could survive, and they used every part of the body of the animal, from organs to flesh to skin, to bones. They used every part for something in their life. And it was a very sacred thing. That's why the headdresses they would wear of, say, a fox or a bird or whatever, it was they were
Hmm.
taking on the spirit of that animal, you
Yes.
know.
Yeah.
It
It was
and
a
it
value.
truly was. And let's go over to some
Hmm.
ancient Celtic and um, English. Their and the ancient English was really Roman and Celtic, but they also had a deep
Hmm.
connection to the animals and would honor them very much. Like Merlin the
Yes.
magician always had the owl with him. I believe he existed, he probably still is existing, is my beliefs on that.
Hmm.
But, again, they, they had a deep connection to animals. And you go through any civilization, I don't care where it is, primitive, whatever, it's, there's animals are big in their society. It's very
Hmm.
few civilizations, when you think about history and stuff, that didn't honor animals.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, without animals, where are
exactly. I
we?
mean, yeah, animals,
There needs to
yeah,
be that
and
respect.
anyone of great intelligence has it and has had it who has
Hmm.
lived. That's all I know. It
Hmm.
comes natural
Yeah.
because, again, the beauty of
Yes.
these wonderful creatures that come into our lives, and they are so beautiful, and each one's special. And like you and I had a chat the other night,
Hmm.
and I had the pictures of your pets, and
Yeah.
I told you all about their
Yes.
personalities.
Yes,
Oh
especially
yeah,
my
the
Coco,
cat.
the cat. He's a
Yeah, he's a
dog for my
dog, but he
listeners.
really
He's a dog.
wanted to be a cat.
He's a cat. And it's funny. I thought about it more later, and I thought he, when he wants attention, he does like a cat. He rubs
Mhm.
all around your legs, goes through your legs and all around. He purrs. He does all those things, and I was blown away that you
Yeah,
said
well,
that.
it's just
I'm totally
all I
blown
need is
away.
a picture, and I can usually get the animal. And if I don't, then there's some
Yeah.
reason. But Oh, yeah.
You nailed it.
Yeah, and you didn't even
Fast.
ask
Oh my
me.
gosh, because I hadn't
No.
told you any
And
of
I
that.
told you about your other,
No, I
yeah,
said he
I
was a
told you
little
about
odd.
your other dog.
That's all I
I
said.
forget, I forget your other
Yeah.
dog's name. Emma.
Emma. Emma
Yeah,
is
she
just a
just
joy.
reflects happiness, joy.
She
Oh, yeah.
radiates love and makes. Let me tell you about Emma. She is so much love, and I'm so grateful to have her because of the joy that I see that she brings to other people. I've had complete strangers stop their car and ask if they can get out to interact with Emma. And I've had workers who are dirty coming off of work down the street, and they've stopped and said, "Could I just pat your dog?" And it's
Hmm.
Emma they're talking about. And she transforms these people. The joy that she brings, I am really
Well,
amazed and
joy is a
humbled.
healing gift.
Yeah,
Not many
yeah,
humans radiate joy,
boy. No,
and yet Emma
no,
is.
no.
And,
But
those that, have those
yes,
spiritual eyes see it.
they see it, and it's nothing I will ever forget, and I'm grateful. It's nice to see what she can bring to the world, to other people, not just me, but what she can bring to other people.
Exactly. And she always will.
Yeah.
And, again,
Oh, she
I
does.
know
Yeah.
it will be hard at the time, which we hope is a long ways off. But, you will be
Yeah.
together in eternity. That much I know.
Hmm.
The proof to me,
Yeah.
what taught
Yeah.
me everything about life after death was my father was my teacher in life. And just, I have to share this. When he died, oh
Yeah.
gosh, this is how I started doing what I'm doing. It's based on his
Hmm.
death. He was in a coma and they were keeping him alive, which
Okay.
goes against my personal beliefs.
Mm.
And I couldn't take it.
Yep.
So I'd never done anything like this ever. But he was the love of my
Hmm.
life. I astral
Yes.
projected myself to the hospital room and I took his spirit because I knew he had a fear of death. And I took his spirit out and
Mm.
we went into this,
Hmm.
then to the astral plane. And when we got there, I figured it'd be my mother who would greet him. And no, it was an army sergeant of his from World War II, who I'd never met. Yeah. And
Really?
he was there and took my father and they went into this room. And I waited outside. I sat down and waited and I could hear people
Hmm.
talking, laughing, lots and lots of people. And I just waited. And when my father
Hmm.
had done whatever visiting he needed, he came back out. I put him back into his body. I returned back into my body and he passed the next day. Within
Oh.
24 hours, he was at my bed, waking me up, screaming everything he wanted me to know and quickly. And he was talking as fast as he can. And I woke up saying, "You're hurting my ear, Dad." And that for that week, I
Yeah.
mean, he was just there in front of me all the time.
Hmm. Was that excitement because he wanted you to
Well, it
know
was,
the things that
yeah,
were
it was a
happening, or?
desperation on his part to try to help me because he knew he should have told me these things.
Mm.
I'd been asking him before
I see.
for 2 years, and it
Yeah.
wasn't like I wanted
Hmm.
his possessions, but he
Right.
needed to tell me what to do, and he was trying. And I'm sure Julia
Yeah.
was seeing him at the same time. She was alive then. And so because of
Yes.
him, it just, no one can ever convince me that there isn't life after death. And my father was, by the way, my father was pure Cherokee. Yeah. And he taught me, and without words, he just taught me everything.
Hmm.
And that was, why I guess he was there again. I know I will see him and my mother. I have had communication with her, of
Hmm.
course, but not to the level I have my father. And, it's just
Yeah.
interesting. There's never enough words to encompass what everything is about spiritually. There's so much, and there's so many
Mm-hmm.
layers to life. And all we are is caught up in the
Mm-hmm.
third dimension when it's not the only one.
Yeah. That's right. And I think that's really important for people to try to have faith in or to understand that this
One,
is just
one realm,
one
and faith
realm.
is the key. Be it a human or an animal who
Mm-hmm.
you've lost, to have faith that you will meet
Mm-hmm.
again and know that you will. And you
Mm-hmm.
will.
Yeah.
All I can say is I
Right.
know this. And I do a special, it's not for everyone. You have to be a certain person to
Mm-hmm.
do it, but I call it guided journey into spirit. I don't channel, I take you into spirit, and you talk direct with deceased loved ones or spirit
Mm-hmm.
guides, angels. You're there and you're talking direct, and it's really quite astounding.
And I'm looking on your website, and I thought I read something about astral projection. Is that what that is? What you're
Yes,
talking
I
about
do
right
it
now, or is
using
that something else?
hypnosis to get the person in the state.
Okay.
But there's an article on my website.
Mm-hmm.
If you look under channeling, it says a client's journey into spirit. And her
Okay.
name was Jamie, and she wrote the article, not me. But at the bottom is also a video where I interviewed her because her journey was astounding. I didn't know her, but she had such a spiritual gift, and we were able to do this so easily. Just amazing. Some people, I have to really prep them for this. People
Yeah.
that are
Yeah.
too attached to this world who can't let go. Because to go into
Mm-hmm.
spirit, you have to let go. It's like jumping off of a diving board. You can't hold on to anything.
Right.
That's why, let's go back like
Mm-hmm.
in the 60s when LSD became so popular. People originally started using it as a way to seek out God. You know, yeah, many
Really?
people
Okay. Yeah.
don't know that,
Yeah.
but that was how it started.
Hmm.
In fact, LSD was discovered, I think it was in the 30s. And in the 50s, psychiatrists, many, were using it with their patients, and they would do, I don't know how to put it, analysis with them using LSD under a controlled circumstance. Like the
Mm-hmm.
actor Cary Grant,
Mm-hmm.
he did it many times with a psychiatrist. People would never think that, such a dignified actor, but
That's
he
right.
was a very interesting man, and he wanted to know more than just this dimension. So
Yes.
its original intent
Yeah.
wasn't so bad, and I met one of the founders of actually back in the 70s. I met this psychiatrist who was one of the primary ones doing that, using it as a form of therapy, believe it or not, before it became,
Mm-hmm.
the popular let's get high.
Right.
And like a lot of people use it today
Mm-hmm.
because it's cheap. LSD is very cheap, so they use it.
Yeah.
But again, if they don't
Mm-hmm.
know spiritual protection, you don't know what you're going to get and where you're going to go on it. It isn't
Exactly.
a drug I recommend by any means. But, people forget there
Yeah.
is positive and negative, the yin and the yang. I think that's a perfect
Yeah.
example by the Japanese. If there's a light, there's a dark. If there's a
Mm-hmm.
dark, there's a light. That's the key, the yin and
Yes.
the yang. And so
Mm-hmm.
if there's a God, there's a devil. If there's a devil, there's a God. Putting it as simplistically as I
Mm-hmm.
can. Because as you can tell,
Mm-hmm.
my spiritual beliefs are a huge part of everything I do.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. I can tell.
Yes, and that's why I say spiritual advisor.
Yes. Yeah. Um,
Go ahead.
so what about pets? You're talking about astral projection and all those
Well,
things.
you
Are
can,
you able to do that
yes,
like with a person and
and to go and
hmm.
talk with the pet. Yes, I don't get a request for
Yep.
this. Only one person I've ever done it for. And it's just
Ah.
not something I guess people think of, maybe, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, you
Yeah.
can meet your pet on the other
Mm-hmm.
side and have a a little run with Fluffy again, you know. Uh, it's just, it is possible because
Yeah,
often,
yeah.
most of the time when you go into spirit and I go with them, there are always animals that are the first things that are seen. Dragonflies, butterflies,
Oh,
bunnies, squirrels. They're right there.
oh,
They're the first things.
mm-hmm.
So they're there,
Yeah.
is all I can say.
Just blows me away. Honestly, it blows my mind. It's so amazing. I
Oh,
love this
yeah.
topic.
It's,
All of it.
the spirit world is
Yeah.
endless and its possibilities are endless. It's just, if you have
Yeah.
an attachment so strong to this dimension, you won't be able to experience it fully. That's all I can say.
Mm-hmm.
And some people, like my father, well, I'll go back to him, where I knew he was
Mm-hmm.
afraid of death and that he was holding to this
Mm-hmm.
dimension. And I wanted him to pass and I didn't want them to keep him alive.
Mm-hmm.
And, once he saw
Right.
everything in spirit, he let go.
Yeah.
Um, for many
Yeah.
people who know the music of the Doors, one of their songs, Break On Through to the Other Side.
Mm-hmm.
There it is.
Yeah.
You got to break through and get
Yeah.
to that other side. And there's many ways to get it.
That's
People
right.
can get it through meditation, prayer, spiritual
Mm-hmm.
experiences. There's many ways to get there, but you will.
I'm looking at all you. You have
I
so
know.
many services. I think that my listeners really have to go to your
And yeah, why
website.
don't we mention
It's your website is
Cherokee?
what?
No, no, it's
Spiritual
Cherokee Billie
advisor.
Spiritual Advisor, and
Yes.
that's with an OR.com. Cherokee Billie Spiritual Advisor, and Billie is Billie. And yes, I have many services, and if there's a loop magnifier to type in, a search. If you type in a word, you're
Mm-hmm.
going to get probably 50 articles or something that I've written on it.
Okay.
And I do have
Yeah.
ebooks. I have audio classes. I teach, by the way. This is important for people to know. I
Yes.
teach one-on-one classes,
It is.
whatever you want to learn.
Oh,
Hmm.
one on
Yeah.
one. I
Yes.
didn't know that.
I have the
Okay.
audio recordings,
Yeah.
which are less expensive, that people can
Mm-hmm.
learn with.
Yeah.
I have one on increasing your intuitive self, and the other is communicating with the deceased, uh, which isn't always
Mm-hmm.
an easy thing. You have to be a certain
No.
mindset for it, but increasing your intuition is critical in today's world.
Mm-hmm.
To
It
trust what
is.
you feel, and no matter what the whole world is saying, to trust that if you're getting something that's saying go totally opposite of what everyone is, you have to learn to trust it. And that's the
You
problem I
do.
think most people have,
Yeah.
is trusting their intuition,
Mm-hmm.
trusting it.
Exactly.
That's why they turn to
Yeah.
psychics and stuff, because they don't trust what they're getting. And a good,
Mm-hmm.
really, a true psychic, I just have to say this, doesn't need anything. They don't use
Mm-hmm.
tarot cards. They don't do, it just comes. And that's how it is with me. The
Right.
answers will just be there and give the guidance that a person may need when they're going through a lot.
Look, I think a lot of guidance is needed these days, and I certainly can understand
Yes,
why, with everything
it
going on in the
is.
world. And I would highly, yeah, recommend just checking out your website just as a first
Yeah,
stop. Check
there's a
that out.
lot there that I offer. All my videos, my articles are there for
Mm-hmm.
free. There is no cost to it.
Yeah.
It's just, you want me and to work with me. Yes, I do charge. This is how I make my living, supporting myself at, at well, as a disabled person, I'm without family and I have to make a way, and I do.
You know, I just met you. I don't know you really. We've talked a little bit, but I have very good instincts, I have to say, and I know that you are
Oh
no
no,
nonsense. Um, you're not going to bullshit people.
I
Pardon the language. You don't tell people what they
correct.
want to
That's
hear.
why a lot
You
of
tell them
people
the
don't come
truth.
back because I will tell you what you don't want to hear. Like one of the most
Well,
popular subjects people want to know is, does he love me or does she
mhm.
love me? That sort of thing. And, I'll be brutally
Yeah.
honest what I get, and it may be no, and it's never going to happen. And, it's
Mhm.
like, what? You know, they're in shock, but
Yeah. Yeah, but those are very kind of, wouldn't you say they're very
oh, very
earthbound
much.
questions? They're
That's
not
why
really.
these psychic
Yeah.
lines, everybody's seen ads for them. And that's how I
Yes.
started professionally, was working with a psychic line before I went out on my own. But that's all people call about is
Hmm.
love, nothing else. They're not calling for
Hmm.
spirituality. They don't even call asking about their job. All they call about is that. And I feel like I could be a
Hmm.
recording. Press 1 to know if he loves you. Press 2 if he's going to leave his wife. Press 3 if their relationship will last
Right.
forever. You know,
Ooh. Mm, yeah.
it's you don't even have
Yeah. It's kind of
have to be a
sad.
psychic to
Hmm.
do work on a psychic line. It's just so easy. The you know the
Yeah.
99% of the
Yeah.
time, it ain't going to work. And that's why
No.
they're seeking someone
Yeah.
to tell them it will work. But, the bottom line is no, it won't.
Right. And what should the question? What should that
Oh,
be?
what?
Like, in my mind, if I were in your shoes and someone were saying, "Does this person love me enough?" I think the question maybe should be, "How much do I love? How much love do I bring? How can I
Well,
bring
you don't
more?"
want to necessarily bring it to that person. But no, but
Not
you should be
necessarily,
thinking
no.
about, how should I love myself more? What can I do to increase
Yes.
love for myself? That's where the foundation of it comes
Hmm.
down to, is people don't love
Yeah.
themselves. That's why they're so desperate looking at someone
Hmm.
else to love them instead of practicing and learning
Hmm.
it themselves.
I wonder if that lack of self-love has anything to do with the extended grief that people feel when their pets pass on, as if
That's a good point.
their own validation just totally relies on that animal. Whereas if they were to able to kind of take on some of
Absolutely.
the
It
love for
really does.
themselves, I wonder if
There are
that
some people who
does that
never
even make
get
sense?
over a pet, and they're hysterical and
Hmm.
crying every day. And it's like, yes, grief takes however long it takes,
Yeah.
but there should be, the
Mm.
5 stages of grief as defined by Elizabeth
Certainly.
Kubler-Ross. I've written an article on grief. You can look it up on my website. And I use what those 5 stages are, that you're going to go through them, and you may go back and repeat them or go upside down with them. But uh, at some point, you should
Yes.
be healing, be it a pet or a human death. There's, and some people don't heal. That's why some people, after, say,
Right.
their husband or wife passes, they don't live long, you know, they don't heal,
Hmm.
you know, and they can't
Yes. Yep.
find
I've heard of
life
that.
again. But
Hmm.
again, it's not a wrong, and I'm not saying it's wrong. Love is love, however you loved. But, it's, again, everything in life, to my no, my
Yeah.
view of life is why we are here.
You're not saying
Big question,
forget.
isn't it? Well, we're here not to just make a living, buy a
Hmm.
house, have a family,
Yeah.
and retire and then die. That
Hmm.
isn't the purpose of our
Hmm.
journey here. A great quotation is, our soul does not keep time, it merely
Hmm.
records growth. We are here for our spiritual expansion, whether we know it or not. Whether it's
Yes.
Joe Blow over there, who's an atheist, you're still here for a
Hmm.
spiritual purpose, whether you believe in it or not.
Right.
It is,
Hmm.
you know.
It's interesting. And do you believe, is that where reincarnation comes in, where people need to keep returning in order to further expand those
Never
beliefs
come back.
and
Yeah,
experience
that's a
what that
part of
means
it.
before they're
And
finally able to?
there's so many reasons why people
Right.
reincarnate. And I am a firm believer, which goes against all these
Mm.
pet spiritual communicators out there, I do not believe animals reincarnate. They don't have to. They are pure. They're a different dimensional level than we are, and they just don't have to repeat and get it right. You know, we have to keep reincarnating sometimes till we've gotten it right, or we've worked off all karmic debt, whatever it may be. You know.
Yes.
And they don't.
Yeah.
And yet there's a lot of people making big money
the purest form.
who tell people that, little Fluffy has reincarnated and is going to come back into their life. Well, let's just take it for example. Say little Fluffy does reincarnate. Doesn't mean you'll meet him. Fluffy could be in Pakistan. So
that's right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And
that's right.
I find it very interesting. I'm sure maybe you've heard of this, maybe you haven't. That Barbra Streisand had her dog cloned. And I just feel that yes, it would be a dog,
I did hear that.
but I can't imagine it being the pure soul. I think of it as it's a soul, but it isn't natural. It isn't pure. I don't know how to express that. Very much. That's what it is, a copy. And it isn't the real thing.
A copy of
doesn't mean that a pet wouldn't have feelings and be whatever. It just, there's something would be lacking. That's all I know.
Yeah.
And there's people who, like her, who
I agree.
Pay a fortune,
I don't
and they will have their pet, cloned.
A fortune. I think it's sad because I think every animal can bring something really wonderful into your life and can teach you something that you are missing. And so if you're just focused on that one, which I'm sure was wonderful while it was alive, but then if you just keep going back to that, maybe you're missing something bigger. Maybe you should bring in some rescued animals or something and learn from whatever it is they have to bring you. That's just my feeling.
A rescue. There's so many animals that need homes.
Yeah.
And they don't have to be a little kitty or a little puppy. They can be any age. They will bring quality to your life, and people should not limit themselves. I got to tell another story. I was just a little girl, about 8 years old. Again, I just never understood that that everyone couldn't communicate with animals. I didn't know it was a gift. I honestly didn't, but I had a parakeet.
Right.
And this parakeet was so wonderful, and I mean, beyond anything I can describe, but it got out through a hole my parents didn't fix in the screen door, and I was devastated because this parakeet was my best friend. We played together, we did everything. So they took me to the pound, and this is in the 50s, okay, way back in ancient times, folks. And don't walk away. But anyway, they took me because there was a lot of puppies
Keep with
there.
us. Stay with us, folks.
I was walking, I came across, walked by this one cage that had many dogs in it. And this one dog came up to the cage, the bars, and licked my hand. And I couldn't move. And my parents wanted me to see the puppies, and I said, no, I want this dog. And no matter what they said, I kept saying, I want this dog. Well, we got that dog.
Yeah.
And that night, when I fell asleep, I woke up in the middle of the night, and that dog was laying with her back to my back with gratitude. And she was very sick, and my mother was a great natural healer and doctor. And she healed this dog, and she lived a long time. But again, it was just, I didn't know much, but I knew that I wasn't going to go without that dog. And I still, honor her. I named my second dog after her. She meant so much to me. And each animal has such beautiful memories for me.
Yeah.
And what they applied, and that's why I'm saying don't overlook. And
Mm-hmm.
the vet determined at
Yeah.
that time that she was probably maybe close to a year old. But my second dog I got as a rescue from a rich family in Beverly Hills. She was a year old. She wasn't the cute little puppy, and they didn't have time for her anymore. You
Mm-hmm.
know, that was it. And she was an astounding dog. Again, each
Yeah, of
pet I've
course.
had, even down to my little
Oh.
mouse. Sakimoto was the name of my mouse, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
That mouse was just, I could tell stories
Oh.
about this mouse. He was really a wonderful little pet. I just love animals, my birds,
Yeah.
again, turtles, whatever I've had. Each one holds a place in my
Yeah.
heart. And I know that I will be with them
Mm-hmm.
we will be together again. I look
Mm-hmm.
forward to that, as well as, my loved ones, human,
Yeah.
and as well as the people that I have
Mm-hmm.
reached that I don't even know.
Right.
Because I had a young guy, call me a couple of weeks
Yes.
ago, and he said, "You did a reading about 6 years ago." Well, I said, "I don't remember you at all."
Mm-hmm.
But he says, "Everything you said, I've been relaying it to people." And he's a
Yeah.
musician, and he puts it out in his music. He says, "And I use your words
Mm-hmm.
to this day." And I went, "Wow, I'm reaching people that I didn't even know." It's amazing to me
Yeah.
that just me, a little old woman,
Isn't that
is
wonderful?
reaching people,
It
and
is. I think we as a species don't even take into account the
very
effect we
much.
have. Maybe why we should choose our words more carefully or how we treat people.
Those, yeah,
That those
if
effects
not
can go
for
on and on and on
infinity,
for a very long time, if not
exactly. And
forever.
yes, if we would wake up spiritually and see who we
Yes.
truly are, what life is truly about, we wouldn't be, it wouldn't be so much hatred and jealousy, envy and killing and all the different things occurring if people could truly
Hmm.
wake up. Again, break on through to the other side.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can't say that one enough because it's very true. And
That's
let's go with
right.
another
That's
song by
right.
the Beatles, All You Need Is Love. That's it. That's the essence. What is God?
Hmm.
God is
So
love.
simple, but
And if you
that's it.
are walking in love,
Yeah.
you are walking in
Mm-hmm.
God's love and light.
Mm-hmm.
Plain and simple. I can't help but teach, as you know. I always come back to
Mm-hmm.
the principles
Yeah.
of God,
Mm-hmm.
period. Whatever your religious belief, I work with any
Mm-hmm.
religion because I've studied all of them. I don't think there isn't a religion I haven't studied.
Mm-hmm.
So I can work
Mm-hmm.
with anybody of any faith. That's why I'm an interfaith minister,
Wow.
because
Yes.
no, they don't need to have
Does a
faith. They don't
person
have to
have to
believe
have
in
a faith?
nothing.
Like if they wanted to contact you and they needed your help, um, they don't have to identify as a religion. They can. You can be. I believe you can have a deep spiritual
Absolutely.
heart and
And a
love
lot of
without being
people
affiliated with
are
a
more tuning
particular
into spirit
religion or
than they are
yeah.
a religion per se. And sure,
Yep.
it doesn't make a difference what a person believes,
Mm-hmm.
but I do ask them, if they do have a certain belief, so that way I know how to
Right.
work with them.
Mm-hmm.
I gotta give a little story real
Yes.
quick on working in psychic line.
That makes
I
sense.
often would ask people if they have a belief in God, and they'd go, no. And I
Yeah.
go, then why are you calling a psychic line? You know, they couldn't, and blah, 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 blah. That was the answer.
And their answer?
Okay. I got them with that one, didn't
Oh.
I? But I mean, it's just, that's what it's about. And again, a true
That's
spirituality
right.
is quite interesting, and being a true
Mm-hmm.
intuitive, a psychic, whatever name you want to give it. I hate the word because psychic has become so misused, and people were using
Mm-hmm.
tarot cards and that's the answer is God. Gosh, no, it isn't.
Yeah.
And I just can say to people, please don't use those things. I know you think they're great, but you don't know
Yeah.
what you're tapping into.
Mm-hmm.
That's my feeling. Well,
Right.
it's like a Ouija board. You
So what
don't
do you
know
mean
what
by that?
spirit
Can
you are
people
tapping into.
tap?
Whereas if you
Right.
go and you are doing, say, a prayer meditation, calling on
Hmm.
God, the angels, whatever your belief may be, especially the angels are workers, then you are working with the love and light
Hmm.
of God. But when I had to study, I studied for many years in different
Hmm.
metaphysical schools, many years, and I was doing that for self-growth. I was not doing it to do this as a living. It was strictly about my own soul. That's what I wanted. And I had to study
Right.
tarot and many of them, and it
Hmm.
never made a sense to me. And I had used as a kid, like anyone as a kid, the Ouija board and stuff.
Hmm.
So it was to me no different, and I still see it that way. And yet, if you
Right.
notice, if you happen to tune into things, people think that tarot cards readings are psychic readings. No, they're not. That's you're reading, interpreting a card, and its meaning.
Hmm.
It has nothing to do with the other. It isn't a true
Right.
spiritual connection. And
Right. And is it
mhm,
because people think that the choice they make to choose and turn over whichever card is somehow kind of a supernatural event that points them into that definition, whereas maybe
pretty
what you're
much,
saying is more that's just coincidence. They
pretty
flip the
much
card and
instead
they're
of
interpreting
tapping
that
into that
card as opposed to
which
really
is
tapping
within.
into. Yeah,
Look at
yeah.
all the great masters or teachers, Buddha, Jesus, whatever,
Hmm.
they all spent time in what? Meditation and quiet.
Hmm.
That's where the answers come. You know, you have to quiet the mind,
Exactly.
the spirit, the
Yeah.
soul. And so many people can't quiet themselves. They can't. And
They can't, and I believe that there's a lot of fear.
they and they can't be
I know
alone.
people who
They go
just
insane
they
if
can't
they're
stop
alone for
talking, they
5 minutes.
can't stop
They gotta
doing.
always be. Those are the
Yes.
lost souls. They really are.
Yeah. 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 Oh, that's hard. I hope that those people are able to
And
learn to
yes,
be
and learning to
comfortable with
love yourself.
their selves, their
Back to that.
thoughts, and
One of the teachings Jesus
you know.
gave is love your neighbor as
Hmm.
yourself. So if you don't have a lot of self-love, how can you love your neighbor? That's what he
Right.
was really, really saying. People
Mm.
interpret it as, oh, you're supposed to
That's
love
true.
your neighbor. It's about self-love was what he was really tuning into. So it's,
Yeah. That's right.
and if you
Because if
love
you
yourself,
respect
then
yourself,
you can love another,
you're going to
truly
respect
love them,
another.
you know, real love,
Yes.
you know,
Right.
like, people who, true love
Hmm.
is someone who sacrifices their life for another. That's a good example of real love. And think of the people who do it for someone they
Hmm.
don't even know.
Yeah. Hmm.
It is. And yet,
That
when
is
we hear
that is
stories
something
of that,
very special.
pardon me, happening, we're
Hmm.
always touched by it. How someone laid down their life for another. And that is the ultimate,
Hmm.
gift of love.
Hmm.
So I leave everybody with that.
It is. Yeah. You know, yeah, and I think of the listeners who have their pets, whatever pets they are,
Absolutely.
and they have that unconditional love. I believe. Maybe they, yeah, maybe they don't realize how spiritual they are. Just to have that in their
And it
lives, I
does
think,
most people,
should
but some
awaken them to
people it
some
doesn't.
deeper
Okay.
meaning.
It's unfortunate, but
Hmm. I believe.
there's still a lot of cruelty
Yeah,
out there.
yeah, that's true.
And it's a sad thing, but it just is. But,
Oh, I know.
again, it doesn't matter what the animal
I
is.
can't.
There's a spirituality there, like with the deer or the
Hmm.
bear or tiger or a lion, something you wouldn't be having as a pet.
Yeah.
yet, or like I mentioned, Coco the gorilla. These are animals you would not have as pets,
Right.
but yet they have enormous wisdom,
Mm-hmm.
ancient wisdom they carry within them. But I encourage people to
Mm-hmm.
please look up
That's
Coco
right.
and Robin Williams.
So
His
much to
death
learn.
really affected me. We were the same age. I have serious health issues, and I understood so much of what he was going through without knowing
Yes.
it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I remember the day I was out walking and I got to my front door and I heard the news on my phone or my
Yeah, and then when
radio,
I studied and
and
learned about
I
the
cried. It
different
just
health
really affected
issues,
me as
and
well.
that Lewy body disease that he had is a nightmare because it's a dementia of the body, for lack of
Oh,
simplicity. And he wasn't able anymore
yes.
to
Ugh.
be that funny, humorous
Mm-hmm.
person that he'd been, and he knew he couldn't capture it. And,
Mm-hmm.
you know, it was too much.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a sad thing. But
Oh,
let me just add
yeah.
this. God is love, and
Who's
there is
that?
no punishment for suicide. I've channeled many suicides, and no, there is not.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Why would God punish, and people
No,
say it's the
I would
coward's
not
way out.
believe that there
No, it
would
isn't.
be
If you've never come
punishment.
face to face with thinking suicide, you don't know what it's
Oh,
like.
that's harsh.
No.
That's right. You do not know what it's like. No. No, it's not. You don't just out of the blue decide you're going to do that. It's you have to be in a very dark place that you can't
It's a
get out of or
place,
you don't
right,
believe you
and
can
it's a
get out
place
of.
you don't want to
And
ever
it's not
have
for
to visit.
anybody
One of the more
to
interesting
judge.
was a lady I knew, someone she knew,
No.
had killed himself. He was a young man in his early 20s with a gun. And she contacted me, and
Mm-hmm.
I had never directly
Mm.
channeled someone, but and I did see him in spirit, and he was afraid. He didn't understand the
Mm.
angels, because he wasn't prepared for
Oh.
being in the spirit
Oh.
world. And yet, someone
Yeah.
came over and assisted him who
Uh-huh.
had lived and wasn't an angel, that I had channeled before, and was helping
Mm.
him. But,
Mm-hmm.
I've seen, I call
Mm-hmm.
it God, there's heaven's
Yeah.
healing room. And people do have
Wow.
to go in and be healed from this dimension.
Look,
They just do.
this is so. I
You
am here.
there?
I'm just absorbing. I'm
Oh,
absorbing. And,
okay. Yeah, it is. It's quite fascinating. It is. That's why I encourage people to look in my article section under channeling and read a client's journey into spirit. And that is one of the most
yes.
powerful articles I have,
Mm-hmm.
because it was written by my client. And I've written a lot on channeling myself. But, her story is just, and there's a recording where I
Mm-hmm.
talked to her, but it was a fascinating what we experienced in that journey into spirit and what happened. And,
Yeah.
just, it'll, it'll awaken something within you. And if you've wondered about a loved one, this has a lot of answers for
Mm-hmm.
you.
Look, I hope my listeners will really look at this and consider contacting you for all these services because I know that they will get some deep meaning from all of the things that you have to offer, whether it's pet related or not. Now's the time to reach out.
Well, thank you, Lisa. I am having problems starting to have interference on my internet and my
Yeah,
phone. So I think
it's
that's God's way of saying, okay, your time
hang
is
it
up.
up.
Yeah, and I don't want to lose you,
No,
and you wonder what happened,
no,
but thank you. And again, I got to tell people it's Cherokee Billie, spiritualadvisor.com. Yes, I have a Facebook page. Yes, I'm on all social media. YouTube, I have hundreds and hundreds of videos on every subject. And my website, they're there, the videos as well as the
That's
articles.
right. And I will post everything on the description page, the show notes, so people don't have to write it all down in a hurry or remember. If they're like me, they can't remember anything. But
But they will always remember Cherokee
yes,
Billie. That they
yes, they will
remember.
always remember. And just check the
Yeah,
show
that
notes
one.
and everything will be there. I want to thank you so
And
much.
and I want to thank you for having me on your program,
You're welcome.
because what you're doing for animals, people need to be aware of. You're doing a lot to educate
Oh,
people
thank
and
you.
help them
That's really.
and help the animals. And I'm grateful for people
Well,
like
thank
you.
you. That means a lot to me. Animals are everything to me. So thank you so much.
It's quite clear. I was on your Pinterest page, and I really got drawn in by it.
Oh, thank you.
And I haven't even went to everything of yours, but that alone told me so much about what you feel and what you
Yeah, I feel
believe.
very strongly
And
about
thank you
that.
for,
Yes, thank you so much.
yeah, and we need more and more people like
Oh,
you out there as
thank
well.
you.
So
Oh,
thank you,
God,
Lisa.
I'm going to get teary-eyed. Thank you so much. Look, it's a pleasure talking to you, and I hope we will be talking again soon.
I look forward
Thank
to
you.
it. And thank you for having me on your
You're
program.
welcome.
And may God bless you and all those
You as
listening.
well. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.
I want to take a minute to thank you, the listeners, for being here. Your support means more than you'll ever know. I especially want to thank my guest, Cherokee Billie, for saying yes when I invited her on. Everybody I've met through the show has been incredibly gracious and insightful, and Cherokee Billie is no exception. Please remember to visit the show's description notes for links to Cherokee Billie's website. You can search for her on YouTube, find her on Pinterest, or even check out her Facebook page. Before I sign off, remember, if you've seen or sensed the presence of a deceased pet, be sure to tell me about it. You can email the show at petsightings@gmail.com with your experiences. Thanks again. Until next time.